One thing, we did a strategy for an industrial distributor that was very small, and they ended up defining, but they were still, it was a professionally managed company, it was just small. And so they put a strategy together, and they said, since we're small and we're local, they told their salespeople, if you're dealing with something that's subject to an integrated supply or a national account deal, you're going to get paid half the commission. And what we looked for, because they had very good experienced salespeople, so their ideal customer was locally owned, locally managed. They had no procurement process at all, so they always had disasters. Long-range planning is what they could do after lunch, and their salespeople could do heroic recoveries. And they were small enough that they actually were able to generate a lot of growth, but what they had to do is they had to get focused on a narrower part of the business, which meant that you had to let go, and that was the hard part. The hardest part they had is they had salespeople screaming bloody murder because those are the big annuity accounts, and they knew that a dollar of GP, all dollars of GP are not created equally, and that's at risk. There's a lot of discussion and there's a lot of energy around this whole how do you get the millennials in the workforce, and there's a lot more talk than there's action, and it's a challenge for everybody. And I think part of it goes back to what Brian said. People are kind of afraid to let go of the old way of doing things. But what are the things that if a company wants to win on this, what are the kinds of things they need to be doing at the sharp end of the stick? I mean, practical.
From our standpoint, what we found the most successful, because we tried a lot of different things, especially to bring in fresh outs or people just finishing their college degrees, and we talked about the messaging around, especially around the idea of renovation and LED. So lighting really played a lot into a great message for them and talking about, this is what distribution does and how we do well. But we really found really effective is, because of the way the industry is just hiring people straight out and putting them in a special program wasn't working as well as their junior year in high school. We do a lot of recruiting for interns, and we bring in a big class of interns. Their
Did
junior
you say high
summer,
school?
No, college. Sorry,
college,
did I say high school? I meant college. Their junior in college, we bring them in for a summer internship program. We pay them. We send them all over the United States, and we pay for their housing, and with the idea that we offer them a job by the end of the year. And what we found, actually, aside from why this is a great place to work, is giving that experience and working in our industry for 3 months in the summer really gives them an idea if they really want to work in the industry, because we were selling a pretty good message, I think, at one point about what you're going to do when you go out and sell lighting renovation to commercial facilities, and then they found out what the real world is like, and it's going to be a little more difficult.
Decide that I don't want to do it.
Yes, most of them were having a little bit of a struggle when that was their first job. Just you give them a summer to kind of see how the whole thing works. So and it's been very effective, and it brings a lot of energy in, and we have a lot of success with that. So.
We're getting serious about it being a key metric. So we're looking at the number of people we're bringing in. We're looking at the composition of all of our people, and really starting to push the issue a little bit. Instead of hiring one person that you knew that was in the industry, why not hire 3 people that are new to the industry? That type of thinking, because you really average down your lower, your average price per person, and you get the ability to kind of get the experience of having them in your business, and at the same time evaluate them for careers in the business, and hopefully you're successful selling them. So we track that metric, and if the U.S. working population is 50% of people born after 1980, which is what I was referencing with Ronald Reagan, then how are we going to compare to that? And I can tell you we're behind as a company. We're certainly behind as an industry, and I think it's something that we've got to do. And I think Bill's ideas about trying to sell some of the things that are attractive and make the industry sound like a great place to start out. Once they're in it and they've established relationships and they understand how it works, they'll understand that even the sexiest industries out there's a lot of drudgery in them, right? So this is a place where I think people can come and as young people move their careers along very, very quickly. The second thing we're doing is actually changing physical spaces. And so we're starting with our own headquarters, where we're really updating the collaborative space, the way the lighting's done, having fitness centers, places that people can go and prepare meals and things like that. So
You mean you're getting rid of cubicle farms?
we are, yeah,
Wow,
taking
that's
a leap.
huge,
So and we'll see how that works. But we thought if these are environments that people that have been in high tech want to come and see what we're like, they'll start to see spaces that they recognize.
So, but again, you guys are thinking and you're experimenting and you keep trying different things instead of just ignoring it.
Yep.
You're investing.
I agree with both of the comments significantly, and I think that the space issue is probably one of the more interesting ones, because if you've got dark wood paneling and brown carpet, it's probably not going to be a place you're going to bring too many millennials. And unfortunately, any sort of industrial industry has a lot of that. And so when you add that to the challenge of many of us, although even the biggest companies, many represented on the stage, are big companies, we're deploying locally. So you have a lot of small offices that, between the work environment and the social aspect, leave some challenges. And so what I think is fascinating about younger people is if you think back to the 90s when email was taking off as a way that we communicated, and then cell phones entered the picture, then smartphones, texting and all that. The theory the whole time was that young people would be substantially less social than we were. And the opposite has been the result. And so how do you then create a lot of social interaction in the group, camaraderie, whether it's supporting happy hours or fun activities during the day just so that they can connect. We have several new locations where the entire team are young people, generally speaking, under, on average, 30 years old, and they're doing extraordinarily well. And it's amazing how much time they spend together outside of work in the evenings and on the weekend. And so now we can't, they're buds. I mean, they're friends. Guys and girls have become really close, and some of them are married. Their spouses are close. And so we can't control all of that, but we certainly can go out of our way to try to facilitate that social interaction outside of work hours, so that you get the ball rolling, and then they connect. But once they do, I mean, they're a tight-knit group. You couldn't break them apart if you wanted to, which from a retention standpoint is a huge advantage for all of us.
Kind of crazy. I know you, because you've seen some stuff in the electronics that would probably scare these guys to death. But
Well, no. I mean, I would just comment. I mean, on my caveat is we don't do a good job with this. So we actually were just looking at, speaking of the data, we were looking at our turnover in our different age categories, and guess what? Guess where our turnover is in that population? The highest in our company. So this may not be a good idea because we're not doing
And by
so
the way,
well.
as you're listening to this, you better be measuring it the same way Brian just laid out. Information's your friend. Go ahead.
But, in addition, some good comments. In addition, what we do bring a lot of people in from colleges, and we try to rotate them around. We created some skunk works areas where special projects, they would be usually staffed with a mix of more experienced and less experienced people. But one thing that really helps is we gave that whole population and all the graduating classes an actual resource. So in our human resources department, there's an executive who's responsible, and she looks out, and it's sometimes it's crazy, the little things that we do that you don't know you're doing that drive people crazy, that could cause someone to make a rash decision, and oftentimes that bubbles up through her.
I will share, it was a challenging story for me, because part of what I got my kids through college. When my last one went to college, I moved on a boat. That way I knew that they wouldn't be able to find me when they got out of college, so they wouldn't move home. But so my son gets a job in both of my kids are engineers. And he gets a job down in Fort Lauderdale because he wants to scuba dive. He's down there 6 months, everything's great. I'm living on a boat. He says, "Dad, I need to talk." And normally those of you that have teenagers, when teenagers want to talk, it's a prelude to ask for money, okay? So he drives up to Melbourne to talk to me, and he says, "I need some career advice. I'm the smartest engineer at this company. I'm not learning anything. These people are idiots. And I want to work for a company where I'm the dumbest engineer and I'm learning things." And so This is exactly what I told him. And many of you in this would absolutely agree that my advice was right. And I said, Mike, you need to be very careful, and you need to find a job where you can be the dumbest engineer and have a mentor, and they'll provoke you and you'll learn a lot. But Mike, it's really important. You don't want to be a job hopper. And when you find this next job, you want to be able to stay there like 5 years and get a good baseline job experience. And he looked at me like cockroaches were crawling out of my mouth. And he said, Dad, that A players work with other A players. We had no obligation in terms of loyalty with the company. A players go to work when there's other A players, and if a company's not good enough to attract A players, they'll fail. I can go to as many different companies as I want because I want to work, and this goes right back to what Chris said. They start to bond, and they have this like secret decoder ring thing. So that told me that I definitely had old ideas. The other thing that happened to me last week, we get a chance to work with, consultants get to work with young people. A millennial came up to me, asked for a business card, gave him a business card, and she looked at me and she said, aren't you embarrassed by this? And I said, what? You know, we had graphic designers, the ink doesn't rub off, it's a cool business card. She goes, you have a fax number on your business card. What's your Twitter? And it's just, I didn't have anything to say. So I don't have them yet, but we already ordered new cards without a fax number. So it's very challenging. And if you think about this, everybody up here is struggling with something new. Everybody up here is taking a different path, but they're doing something. They're using data, they're experimenting, they're investing money. And if you don't do it, you're going to end up with a bunch of old guys and by the way, as an old guy, old men always stay too long. I can say that now. And all the entrepreneurial fire in the belly can be cured by Tagament. I mean, you need to have this energy in the company. So, and we've pretty much run out of time here. By the way, 2 hours have gone by. But when we talk about all this change and all this disruption, and there's a lot of things I took out of this conversation, I'm going to go around the room here and ask you guys if you're sitting on the board of one of these companies, and there was one thing. Remember the movie City Slickers, Jack Palance and Billy Crystal? And we're doing a selfie. Look, this is so high tech. You know, you're pulling off the yuppie thing really well. Actually, yuppies are old now too. I missed that whole.
I promised our communications department I'd do a Yammer post. And so
a Yammer? What's a Yammer post?
A Yammer is an internal communication.
Oh, okay. You scared me.
And so we use that inside the company, and I suggested that maybe she should teach my support assistant how to do it. And yesterday she scolded me and said, "No, they'll know right away if you don't do the post." So I'm going to make. I'm going to.
Yeah, you're in the same boat I am, man.
So we all have to change, right?
It's tough. So if there's one bit of advice, and Halsey, I'll start with you.
Okay.
If they're thinking about this predator prey and they want to play it to win, and it's like Jack Palance and Billy Crystal and Norman the Cow, right? The one thing, what's the one thing they should be thinking about?
I would say change is slow until it's not. And I like that quote when I think about the fact that Kodak's best years were in the early 2000s, and 4 years later, their type of photography was gone. And I'd say we've had our time when we weren't sure exactly what the demographic changes and the application of technology to our businesses would mean. But I think we're rapidly approaching the point where we're going to see the change was slow, and then it's not. It's fast.
Bill, how about you? What's the big takeaway if they're going to be thinking about it?
You know, it kind of ties into what Halsey said about that change, because the reality is if we look at what we offer and the value that we bring as a distributor right now, is there's this normal distribution curve, that hump in the middle, I believe, and many believe, is going away. That's the holding inventory, extending credit, offering some logistics and inventory management. So that service platform is going to shrink. It won't go away totally, but it's going to shrink. And what you're going to have to figure out is, what is the product that you offer? What's your R&D about what you bring? The channel-led demand creation. You still need to work, it's not putting the manufacturers out of the picture, but it's figuring out and finding that niche, because there is those markets, and I believe that's going to be the future. There's going to be the if you take it to the left or the right, there's going to be this kind of no frills, absolutely low cost to serve model that most of us would have trouble competing with, and there's going to be this high-value, customized solution model where the customer really understands why he buys from you, and you're not easily replaced. So.
Chris?
Yeah, I would say that at some point, if disruption, which we often refer to as if it's an event, or we point to specific events and consider it disruption, at some point when there are enough of those in rapid succession, and that never seems to end, disruption's just the way life is. It's just norm at that point. And I think that this industry is at that point. And so I think it's hard for us to give an insight that's sort of going to fit every situation in the room, other than my view would be agility, quite simply. You know, if you have the ability to be agile, when you confront your version of strategic challenge, you'll deal with it appropriately. It'll be different from mine. It'll be different from all the other people in the room potentially. But if you're agile, you'll operate very effectively in an environment where disruption is now just the way things work.
Brian, what's your take?
I agree with everything everyone said. My takeaway is simple. So. Bill talked about it very early. We were 5 minutes in, and he said, you don't know if it's just getting warmer, if you're in a pot and you're a frog, and the temperature's getting towed up. So, get the data, measure things, and understand: is this a real threat, or is this just noise? And have a plan. You know, I was talking to a board member of another company, and they said, of course, everyone needs a plan for Amazon. Doesn't mean you need to do it, but you need to have the plan. And the time to be thinking about the plan is before your house is on fire. And so, having those plans, if something comes in, if you're if you think you're Kodak, and digital photography's on the way, what's your plan?
I don't have a takeaway, but I have a question. And I got it years ago from an old book called The E-Myth, E being the entrepreneur myth. And it asked the question, and I thought about my business, and it said, how much time do you spend working on your business versus working in your business? And when I got that the first time, I was spending all my time getting cut. I wasn't spending any time working on my business. And what you just got here over the last 2 hours is, and from my point of view, I'm a consultant, I charge a lot of money for this. This is really powerful stuff, but it does you no good at all if you don't spend some time working on your business. So we've run out of time. We could have gone longer. But please join me in thanking our panelists.